The night was quiet on the barren planet, its surface covered in an endless stretch of dry sand and jagged rocks. The only sounds that echoed through the barren landscape were the winds, sweeping across the empty land. There was no sign of life, only the occasional flash of distant lightning illuminating the otherwise dark sky. But something was about to change, something that would shake the stillness of this lifeless world. A bright flash cut through the night sky, followed by a loud crash. The ground trembled beneath the force of impact. A spaceship, sleek and advanced, had just plummeted to the surface. The metal hull of the ship screeched as it collided with the earth, leaving a trail of smoke and sparks in its wake. From a distance, a lone figure stood at the entrance of a small, weathered human settlement. The man, clad in a rugged survival suit, squinted into the horizon. He had been stationed on this isolated planet for weeks, performing maintenance on his ship, but tonight something was different. He had seen the flash of the spaceship. It wasn't just any ship, it was advanced, unlike any human-made technology. His heart raced with a mix of curiosity and unease. What was it? Who could it be? He adjusted his helmet and grabbed his blaster just in case. As he made his way toward the wreckage, the air seemed thick with tension. The crash had been hard, the ship's metal exterior twisted and blackened by the fire. But amidst the smoke there was movement. Something, or someone, was still alive inside. The man's pace quickened as he approached, his boots crunching on the cracked earth. He reached the wreckage and knelt down, peering inside. The first thing he noticed was the blood, dark, alien blood that stained the cracked metal. His eyes widened, his pulse quickening. He had never seen anything like it before. As he carefully opened the hatch, he found her. She was lying there, unconscious but alive, her alien features partially obscured by the smoke. Her skin was an unnatural shade of blue and her body was lithe, with sharp, angular features that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. The man could tell she was injured. Deep cuts covered her body and her breath came in shallow gasps. He hesitated for a moment, uncertain. This was no ordinary being. She was unlike anything he had ever seen, and the danger of approaching her weighed heavily on his mind. But there was something about her that made him hesitate, something that stopped him from running away. His instinct told him to leave, to walk away from the wreckage, get into his ship, and get as far from this alien as possible. But then he noticed something else, something even more unsettling. Her eyes. They were open, staring straight at him. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The woman's gaze locked onto his, and in that instant, the man felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, fear, curiosity, and an odd sense of recognition all mixed together. He could tell that she wasn't just another alien. There was something deeply powerful about her, something that could easily overpower him if she chose to. And yet, despite the danger, he couldn't pull himself away. The woman's breathing quickened, and the energy in the air shifted. Her heat, an intense burning aura, seemed to radiate from her. The man felt it. It was palpable, almost suffocating. It wasn't just physical heat, but something more primal, something wild. The alien's body temperature was rising rapidly, and with it a fierce, untamable energy that threatened to consume everything around her. The man swallowed hard, unsure what to do. He had heard rumors of aliens like her, creatures who could control the minds of weaker beings, who could turn a person's fear into submission. Was this one of those creatures? Was she the kind of alien who would enslave him the moment he let his guard down? But then something unexpected happened. The alien's expression softened. She didn't attack. She didn't strike out. She only stared at him, her glowing blue eyes filled with a strange sadness, as though she was in pain, both physical and emotional. The man stood frozen, torn between his instincts and his desire to help. He had always been taught to stay away from aliens. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and often hostile. But there was something about her, something that made him want to reach out and help, to offer her something she seemed to lack: compassion. For a brief moment, he considered leaving her there. After all, this was no ordinary alien. She was dangerous. Her heat was escalating, and if he didn't act fast, he might be caught in her destructive force. But the thought of walking away, leaving, her to die alone on this desolate planet, felt wrong. The man took a deep breath, his hand shaking as he reached toward the woman. As he did, a low, almost animalistic growl rumbled in her throat, a warning to stay away. The heat from her body intensified, and the temperature of the air around them seemed to rise. She was dangerously close to losing control. But despite the warning, he didn't pull back. He continued to approach her, determined to offer help. And just as he reached out to touch her, the woman's eyes shifted. They softened, and in that moment, something clicked. It was as if she understood that he wasn't a threat, that he wasn't here to hurt her. The man, against all his better judgment, opened the door of his ship wide. The question still lingered in his mind. Was he making a mistake? Was he about to allow the most dangerous being he had ever encountered into his life? Or was this his one chance to make a difference? The tension was thick as the alien woman took a hesitant step forward, her body still radiating with wild energy. The door to his ship was wide open, and with it, the possibility of an unimaginable fate. The human man stood there staring at the alien woman, his mind racing with questions and doubt. Her presence was overpowering. Her glowing blue skin, the sharp angular features, the unsettling heat radiating from her body. Yet, in her eyes there was something he couldn't quite place. Fear, pain, loneliness. It was as though she was a creature caught between two worlds, neither fully alien nor fully human. She stood motionless, her chest rising and falling rapidly with every breath she took, her heat still smoldering like a wildfire just waiting to break free. The man could feel it too. The heat, the danger, the raw, untamed energy swirling around her. But despite everything, despite the warnings flashing through his mind, he couldn't look away. Something in her gaze held him captive, and the more he stared, the more he felt an inexplicable pull toward her. She was a danger to him, of that much he was certain. Yet there was a part of him, a small but undeniable part, that wanted to help her. He couldn't understand why. It was illogical. It was reckless. But that strange connection between them, the one that seemed to stretch across the void of space, was undeniable. She took a cautious step forward, her movements slow and deliberate, as though testing the waters. Her alien instincts were at war with something deeper, something more human. The man had seen her growl earlier, a primal sound that had sent chills down his spine. But now, there was no growl, no hostile movement. Just an overwhelming silence that filled the air. He swallowed hard, unsure of what to do next. His instincts screamed at him to be cautious. He had no idea who or what she was. What was her species capable of? Why was she here, on this forgotten planet in the first place? His mind was filled with questions, but his heart told him to step forward, to help, to open the door wider. Taking a deep breath, the man stepped aside, his arm motioning toward the entrance of the ship. He said nothing, but his actions spoke louder than words ever could. The alien woman paused, studying him carefully. Her glowing eyes flickered with a mixture of confusion and curiosity, as if she was trying to read him, trying to figure out his intentions. She was dangerous, that much was certain, but there was also something vulnerable in her gaze. For a long moment, neither of them moved. It was as if the world had stopped turning, the silence between them growing heavier with every passing second. Then, as if some unseen force had nudged her forward, she stepped inside. Her movements were graceful, yet filled with a raw, unbridled energy that hinted at the power she held. The man watched her closely, his hand still gripping the doorframe, half expecting her to lash out at any moment. But instead of attacking, she simply looked around the ship, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings with an intensity that told him she was searching for something, perhaps for safety, for understanding, or for answers. Answers that neither of them had. As she moved further into the ship, the heat around her seemed to dissipate, though not entirely. It lingered in the air, crackling like electricity. But now there was something else in the room. Something intangible. A connection. An unspoken understanding. She turned back to face him, her eyes locking with his once more. The man could feel his heart racing, his palms sweating. The tension between them was thick, almost suffocating. He could sense her struggle. She was clearly out of her element here. This wasn't her world, and she wasn't accustomed to relying on anyone. She had the power to destroy him with a single movement, yet here she was, standing before him, vulnerable and unsure. It was a dangerous mix, and yet the man didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt something else. Was it pity? No. Something more profound. It was as though he was seeing beyond the creature standing before him, beyond the alien heat and the glowing, armor-like skin. He saw something more human in her, something fragile. Her vulnerability mirrored his own in some ways. They were both lost in this vast, cold universe, unsure of their place in it. The man stood at the helm of his ship, staring out into the vast emptiness of space. The stars twinkled in the distance, cold and indifferent to the drama unfolding within the confines of the ship. His thoughts were a storm, a chaotic swirl of confusion, fear, and an inexplicable sense of responsibility that weighed heavily on his shoulders. The alien woman, the one who had crashed on this desolate planet and who now occupied a corner of his ship, was a constant presence in his mind. Her eyes, the way she looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion, haunted him. Every time he thought about the moment he opened the door to let her in, he felt a shiver run down his spine. Was he a fool for trusting her? Was it the right decision to bring a dangerous alien onto his ship, knowing that she could destroy him with a single movement? And yet when he saw her eyes soften, when she let her guard down just a little, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Her heat, though no longer as intense, still lingered. It was a presence he could feel in the air around her, crackling, like electricity. The man had learned that the heat wasn't just a physical reaction, it was tied to her very being. It was how she communicated her emotions, how she interacted with the world around her. In a way, her heat was her armor, her shield, but it was also her vulnerability. The more he interacted with her, the more he realized just how much she struggled to control it. The man paced back and forth in the control room, unable to settle his thoughts. He had never felt so conflicted in his life. He had always trusted his instincts, his gut, but now everything was uncertain. The alien woman, though dangerous, had shown him something he hadn't expected. She was more than just a creature of war and destruction. There was depth to her, something fragile beneath the surface, something that was trying to reach out to him. But was he just fooling himself? Was he letting his empathy blind him to the very real threat she posed? What if she was playing him? What if her warmth was just a trap, a way to lower his defenses before she struck? As he tried to make sense of it all, the alien woman entered the room, her footsteps light but purposeful. Her presence, though calming in some ways, still made his pulse quicken. He had to admit, it was hard to ignore the primal force she exuded. Even though she had shown him no malice, the danger she represented was undeniable. Her very existence was a conflict in itself. Was she an ally? Or was she just a time bomb waiting to explode? She stopped in front of him, her glowing blue eyes meeting his. Her face was a mask of calm, but he could see the flicker of something behind her gaze, something unsettled, something that mirrored his own internal conflict. She didn't say anything at first, but the silence between them was filled with unspoken words. "You don't trust me," she said softly. Her voice, strange mix of sadness and resignation. The man's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't realized how much she had been observing him. She was perceptive, far more than he had given her credit for. He opened his mouth to deny it, but the words caught in his throat. He couldn't lie to her, not when she already knew the truth. "I don't know if I trust you," he admitted, his voice low and hesitant. "You're not like any alien I've ever encountered. You're different. But that doesn't mean I don't feel responsible for you. She nodded slowly, as if understanding the complexity of his feelings. You are afraid, she said, her voice almost a whisper. Afraid of what I could do to you. The man lowered his gaze. He was afraid, that much was true. But it wasn't just fear of her power. It was fear of what would happen if he allowed himself to get too close. He wasn't just scared of her heat, her alien nature, or the way she could wipe him out in an instant. What terrified him was the connection he was beginning to feel for her. And that scared him more than anything. I don't know what I'm doing, he confessed. I opened the door for you, but now I'm not sure if I should have. You're dangerous. And yet, I can't help but wonder if there's more to you than just what I've been told. The alien woman's expression softened, though the intensity of her heat never fully disappeared. I am not what you think, she said quietly. I am more than my heat, more than the force that drives me. But I cannot control it. It is a part of me, and it will always be a part of me. Her words struck him harder than he expected. He had seen her as a threat, something to fear. But now he understood. She was a prisoner of her own nature, trapped in a cycle she couldn't break. It was as though she was fighting against a tide that was far stronger than her will. The heat was not just her power. It was her burden, her curse. And yet there was something human about it. It was a raw emotion, something that connected them both in ways he couldn't fully understand. They were both struggling, her with her alien instincts and him with his fear of the unknown. The man took a step forward, his heart pounding. What happens now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The alien woman met his gaze with a quiet intensity. Now we decide. Together. In that moment, the man realized that there was no turning back. He had already made his choice the moment he opened the door. Whether he was ready for it or not, this connection between them was real, and it was going to change both of their lives forever. But what would that change look like? Could they survive it? Could they learn to coexist despite the overwhelming conflict inside both of them? The answers would come in time. But for now, the only thing he knew for sure was that the conflict within him, the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, was far from over. And the journey ahead would be anything but easy. The silence that filled the ship was suffocating. It was a silence that spoke volumes, thick with unspoken fears, desires, and the weight of decisions that were yet to be made. The man stood at the ship's control panel, his fingers hovering over the console. Outside, the vast emptiness of space stretched out before him, an endless void. But within the cramped walls of the ship, he felt like he was trapped in a cage, his own mind a battlefield. The alien woman stood just behind him, her presence both calming and terrifying. He had gotten used to her presence over the past few days, her glowing blue skin, her ever-present heat that radiated from her like an unyielding furnace. But despite the danger she represented, despite the wild power that flowed through her veins, there was something in her eyes now that was different. There was no longer any hostility, no longer the unrelenting force that had once consumed her. She was exhausted, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The heat that had once burned so fiercely within her was now a simmering ember. She was no longer the wild, untamable force that had first entered his life. Now she was fragile, vulnerable in a way he hadn't expected. Are you ready? The man asked, though the question was more for himself than for her. His voice was strained, his heart pounding with the weight of what was to come. The alien woman's eyes locked onto his. Ready for what? To make a choice, he said. His voice was low, barely a whisper, as if speaking the words aloud made them more real. To decide if we can truly do this, if we can face the future together, or if we must part ways. She took a step closer, her movements slow and deliberate. Her heat seemed to flare up slightly, but it was controlled, contained. She was struggling, he could see that, but she was trying to suppress it, trying to control the one thing that had defined her existence for so long. "I don't want to hurt you," she said softly, her voice barely audible. "But my nature, it's not something I can just ignore. It's who I am. The heat, the power, it's a part of me, a part of everything I do. It's what keeps me alive, and it's also what makes me dangerous." The man turned to face her, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what he had to do. The ship's quiet hum seemed to echo in his ears, the pulse of the machine mirroring the rhythm of his heart. He had never been faced with a choice like this before, a choice that could change everything. "I know," he said, his voice steady. "I know what you are. I know what you can do. But I also know something else. You're not just your heat, not just your power. You're more than that, and you've shown me that." He paused, his eyes meeting hers with a depth of understanding that went beyond mere words. "I've been afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of what might happen if I let you in. But now, I see it differently. I see that we're both fighting, something inside of us. You're fighting your nature and I'm fighting my fear. But we can't keep fighting forever." The alien woman's gaze softened, and for the first time she allowed herself to show a hint of vulnerability. She stepped forward, her hand reaching out towards him, and the man didn't pull away. Instead, he took her hand, their fingers touching, in a fragile moment of connection. "I can't promise that everything will be easy," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't promise that I'll be able to control the heat, the power, but I can promise you this, I'll try. I'll fight against it. For you. For us." The man's heart swelled with a mixture of emotions, hope, fear, but above all, love. The bond between them had grown stronger than either of them had realized. It was a bond that transcended their differences, transcended the barriers that had once seemed insurmountable. "You don't have to do it alone," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "I'm here with you. We're in this together, and I will help you." But the moment of peace was short-lived. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the ship, snapping them both out of their reverie. The man's head whipped around, his eyes widening as the display on the control panel flashed red. The signal was unmistakable. Alien ships were closing in fast, their weapons locked onto their coordinates. The man's heart sank. "They've found us," he muttered, his voice grim. "The others, the ones who were after you." The alien woman's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing as she realized what was happening. The heat within her surged again, but this time, it was different. It wasn't the wild, uncontrollable heat that had first consumed her. It was focused, calculated. She was ready to fight, ready to protect. "No," she said firmly. "I won't let them take you." The man knew what she was thinking, and it struck him like a punch to the gut. She was willing to sacrifice herself, to use her powers to fight off the incoming ships, even if it meant putting herself in danger. She was willing to risk everything to protect him. "Don't do it," he pleaded. "There's another way. We can escape together. We can get out of here." But she shook her head. "There is no time for escape. If I don't stop them now, they'll destroy everything. I'll do this for you. For us." The man's heart clenched as he realized the truth. She wasn't just giving up her life for him, she was giving up the only thing that made her who she was, her heat, her power. She was willing to sacrifice her very essence to save him. "Then I'll stay," he said, his voice firm. "I'll stay with you, whatever happens." With that, the alien woman's eyes glowed brighter than ever before. She stepped forward, standing tall, her body radiating power as she prepared to face the enemy. The man stood by her side, ready to fight with her, knowing that whatever came next, they were in this together. As the first wave of alien ships arrived, the man and the alien woman faced the unknown with courage, their hearts intertwined, knowing that whatever sacrifices they had to make, they would do it for each other. And in that moment, with the fate of both their worlds hanging in the balance, they were no longer alone.